you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you for allowing me to come into your school and talk to you. I'm talking to you, of course, about my daughter, Reta, but I'm also talking to you about issues that have affected an awful lot of people in Canada and even around the world. This is her up here on the picture here behind me. And I took this picture in April actually, of 2012. I took her one day from the hospital, mental health ward, to the SPCA. And the reason she was in the hospital was because she had tried to kill herself. And I guess that's what I'm here now to do, is to hopefully explain to you how she ended up in that situation, and maybe give you an idea that you can take away from here, that you may be the kind of person who would stand up for somebody like her and not be a bystander. And I know that this is Bullying Awareness Week, and sometimes, you know, I know a lot of people don't really like the word bullying. It kind of tones it down a little bit. Like, a lot of people come to me and say, well, bullying is a rite of passage and stuff like that, but it's not anymore, and I'm going to explain why. It's not like that anymore. It's not like it was when I was a kid, so I'll talk to you a bit about that. But my daughter, Reta, I took her to see these animals, and when it's sad because when I took her here to this hospital, or to the SPCA to do some dog walking, because it was very therapeutic, and she absolutely loved animals. And almost, I'd say, a year, almost to the day after I took these photos, she did end her life. And that was that. She died. She died because what I refer to, and what a lot of people believe, it was a completely preventable death, but she died because of bullying, cyberbullying. She died because social media. There's a lot of reasons why she died. But I do think one of the #1 things that could have stopped her from dying would have been friends sticking up for young people, choosing not to be bystanders. So I came here to do this talk because, you know, it's important to me. I'm a normal, average, everyday Canadian father. I don't stand out from really anybody. And here I am right now, you know. I haven't worked since she died. But what I try to do is go around and just talk to people. I've talked to a lot of high schools. I've talked to conferences. I've talked to police officers. I've talked to counselors, mental health people. And I'm just thrown right into this role here now because what happened to my daughter is so awful. I just can't imagine sitting there and finding out it's happened to someone else, and it's really sad because it has. It has. There are people in our country, young people like you in this room here, who decide there's no other option. And you need to know that there is. There always is. And you need to know as well, too, because if you know somebody like this, I am asking you, I'm pleading with you, please do something. And you don't have to do something powerful. You don't have to be this great, wonderful superhero, come in on a cape or a magic carpet or anything like that. All you need to do is tell the person that you care about them. And believe me, you may think that's a small thing to do, but if 10 of you did that, what a difference that would make. So I'm here today to try to stop and try to talk to you about the bystander stuff. The bystander stuff, of course, is when people see something absolutely terrible happen to somebody and they don't do anything about it. And a lot of people would say, well, that's your right. You don't have to do something about it. But I'm here to let you know that when you don't do something about it, you're not neutral. I'm not a part of this. By saying that and doing nothing, you are a part of it. You're on the wrong part of it. So I'm hoping I can say something to you that can resonate with you and you could take home and say, you know, this isn't something that should ever happen. This isn't something I'm going to put up with. It's not something I'm going to sit here and allow happen to another person at my school. My daughter was a straight-A student. She loved animals. She was a very popular girl. She was extremely smart. She read Stephen Hawking books when she was 13 years old. She talked a lot about the universe. She talked a lot about God. The very last text message I got from her on her cell phone, I went to pick her up this one night because she went to a counselor because she was going through so many absolute traumatizing things that happened to her. She was going to see a counselor, And the very last text message I got from my daughter that came across on my cell phone after years and thousands of messages, the last one she sent me was, "I'm in the church." And it just seemed really strong to me. And now when I look back at it, it just has this spiritual meaning. You know, and I thought of saying that. I never really said that before, but, you know, I heard it this morning here when I was standing out here waiting for your school to start, and they said a prayer. And then it kind of connected with me a little bit, you know. I'm in the church. I guess I can find some peace in that. I can find peace, too, that the last words that my daughter said to me when I drove her home that night, she leaned over, she gave me a big hug and a kiss, and she said, "I love you, Dad." And she got out of the car and she walked into her mom's house, and the next day, she died. She was very much loved. She wasn't a troubled girl. She wasn't bad. She had so many people who loved her, little sisters, surrounded with all these beautiful animals. Always, since she was little, she had little animals in her life. And I'm saying this because I can look around this room right now, and I see people here who almost look like her. And that's the important thing to remember. This could have been anybody. It could have been anybody. And I can't believe, you know, in my life that I'm here in a high school in Toronto, and I'm from Halifax, I'm here in a high school in Toronto, I'm talking about my daughter in the past tense. I should be at her high school, picking her up. I'm not. And that's just unacceptable. It just shouldn't be like that. So I want to talk to you about it, and also I want to talk because, I mean, some people think, well, what does this have to do with me? And the thing is, it's not a unique case. I'm sure you've heard of Amanda Todd in British Columbia, you know, and you know Jamie Hubley. He's the young boy in Ottawa, and he committed suicide because all these people ganged up on him because he liked Lady Gaga videos on YouTube. And so what? I talked to Jamie's father, and, you know, he was so broken up because he's like, I loved my son so much. He was a wonderful boy. He was such a good kid. He had such a big heart. And I know Carol Todd, Amanda Todd's mom. I know her. And the three of us there, we sat in Ottawa, and we were with Prime Minister Stephen Harper, and you can look around and you see, and I'll tell you, there is nothing worse than looking into the eyes of a parent whose child died. And there are a lot of parents who lose their children. They lose them in traffic accidents. They lose them to cancer. They lose them to the worst, awfulest things. But suicide? That's so preventable. It's not something they were going to die from when they were born, you know. It's not, who goes, how do you figure this out as a parent? How do you figure it out? They just came to this place where the only option they had to them was that's it. And you wonder, who did this? What caused this? And I look back at that, and there's a million things on, but me and her mother, we loved her to pieces. We loved our daughter so, so much. We did everything we could to try to save her life. We really did, but at the end of the day, there just wasn't enough of it. She was put in such a bad, bad place. There was nothing we could really do about it. When I took her to the hospital there, when that picture I showed you up there, she was in there because she told, like I said, she tried to end her life, and her aunt came home and caught her. And almost a year later to the day, she did exactly the same thing. Only this time I ended up walking down a hallway in a hospital, and his doctor came up to me and he said, I gotta tell you, this is as grim as it gets. And you can't believe how that feels as a parent to have them say that to you, that your daughter, your beautiful child is not going to live. It was the worst moment of my whole life. Nothing is ever going to come that'll be worse than that. What could it be? But I take a little bit of comfort in that I can come in here in this school right now and say to somebody in here, you know, there was something people can do. There is something people can do. Every single person, even Even the person in this room who may think I am the weakest person in my school, you can be the strongest person in your school, and it's so easy to do it. All you have to do is have a good heart and care. That's it. And you can be so powerful. And I'm going to talk a bit about the internet too, because the internet is, wow, this is huge. You know, you all have communication ability with the entire world. Some of you can have pen pals anywhere in the whole world. But there's so many people out there who are like, I'm going to use that power to be mean. And why? That doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? We could bring all humanity together, and instead, you know, we're slinging arrows. And it doesn't make sense to me. And I've seen the arrows hit victims. I've seen the arrows hit my daughter. I've seen her on the couch one night when a message came in, she's beside me, and she's like, Dad, look, and it was this text message from somebody, and I read it, and I'm thinking, why would someone ever send something like that? And you write them back, and you find out it's a 20-year-old man. Why is he even texting my daughter? I don't understand. That doesn't make any sense to me. How do you even get her phone number? It's a powerful weapon. And we're losing too many young people about it. And I just got to mention real quick that when I was a kid, you know, I got beat up. I got beat up in grade 7, okay? I was a good soccer player is why I was beat up. And the bully of the school didn't like that because I would always be run after and take the ball off him. And I remember one day, you know, he said something that he was gonna kill me or something. And so after school, you know, he was waiting for me, and he beat me up. He beat me up pretty good. He split my head open, my lip open, there's blood everywhere. In grade 7, you know, I'm crying because I'd never experienced something like that before. But I went home, and I'm safe. I went home, and my mom and dad are there, and now I'm safe. And this is the terrible reality of the world today. On the next slide, and because it's so terrible today, and it's so different, is because of stuff like this. And this isn't Facebook's fault or YouTube's fault or Twitter's fault, anybody else's fault. But what happens when you have weapons like that with people is this happens. I wasn't beat up by one kid in grade 7. The way it is today, you're beat up by 1,000 kids. You're beat up by kids you don't even know. If I'd been beat up in grade 7 the way I was, and I was so upset, and I went home and saw that someone actually put it on YouTube, and people were saying, look at this loser, that has an emotional impact. And that's cyberbullying. It's crime. It's harassment. I don't know why people would do that and think, this is funny. It doesn't make any sense. It's not funny. Not at all. I don't know if this happened to me when I was a kid and I ended up like that. Would I even be here right now? Some people aren't emotionally as strong as others, and they can't deal with it as well as others. They may not have the support network that other people have. That's the power of the internet, and that's why it's so dangerous. But imagine, though, if I went home, and instead of seeing something like this on my computer and on my cell phone and on videos on YouTube, imagine if I went home and there was people like this, but they weren't beating me up. They were saying, hey, man, I'm really sorry that happened to you today. That was wrong. I hope you're okay. That's just turning the whole thing around. That's using social media to make a change in someone's life, to help them recover, to help them get over something. Maybe you could save their life. So you're not just the one person up there in the square when you do something like that. You could be a part of that great big thing, that wonderful, beautiful thing to help somebody and possibly be a part of saving somebody's life. And the internet, the way it works today, of course, and I'm sure all of you know this, is it's always turned on. It's always there, it's always watching, and you just can't get away from it. And the worst part about it, the worst part about the internet right now today, and I've read lots of stories about this, is people said mean things online. They're in high school like 4 years ago, and they wrote all this stuff about people. And then all of a sudden they go out, you know, they're in university, and they're going to get a job placement, and their employer brings up their name. And hey, you know those bad things you said? Well, there they are. It's written in ink. It's permanent. It might not go away. You might think, oh, I'm sending some message to Reta Parsons that I hope she goes and kills herself and she's not welcome to school anymore. But then find out later on, well, why is that still on her Facebook page after she died? Yeah, it's still there. It's still there. And the name of the person who sent it's still there. And it will be there forever. That's a terrible thing to live with. But imagine if instead of saying, you know, Reta Parsons is horrible and awful, and I hope she kills herself. Imagine if you'd said, Reta, I'm so sad that this happened to you. I love you. You're my best friend. I hope you're okay. Imagine if that came up instead. Wouldn't that be a lot better? The internet's written on ink, and that's something that's really, really important. And social media, I know it just connects us with everything and every part of our lives. And this is the way I said this to the first group of kids came in here, and I'll say it again. I've said it before. As an adult, we have failed miserably. Not you have failed, we failed. Because we provided all this information, all these tools, all this way to communicate with everybody else, and not once has probably anybody ever gone to you and said, here's how you use this responsibly. Here's how to be a good citizen. Here's the power of this to do so much good in the world. But also say to you, you know, if you use this wrong, here's what could happen. And what could happen can be really bad. I know in Nova Scotia now they have laws passed because of my daughter, and the law says if you use your cell phone to go text somebody something really ignorant and mean and rude and cruel, the police can come to your home and take your phone off you right there and there. And they've done it. And they tell your parents they're responsible for it, and they're going to have to go to court. It'd be better if you never did it in the first place, of course, which is the best thing. But the power of the internet, I want to show to you, and I want to explain to you why it's written in ink, because social media was something that I believe played a huge role in ending my daughter's life. It was something she couldn't get away from. After this happened, I'll explain to you real quick what happened to her, okay? And I'm not going to go into all these details because I can't. I can't explain to you because what happened to my daughter is just awful. She went to a sleepover one night, November 2011, at a friend's house, and I'm sure a lot of you have gone to sleepovers. I had friends come over with her to my house and do sleepovers, but when she was there, this girl said, hey, let's go down the street, there's some boys. And she went down the street to another house, and it was only like 8 o'clock at night, and the boys that were there had some alcohol. And my daughter woke up the next morning, and her life was never the same again. And what happened to her that night, someone took a picture of it. And then when those boys went into the school, this happened on a Saturday, went into the school Monday, they spread around this terrible, awful story of Reta about something they did to her, and she doesn't even remember what it was. She doesn't even remember what it was. That's her side of the story. What happened? I don't know. They knew, and they didn't hesitate for a second to share with everyone what they did to my daughter. And what they did to her was something a father should never hear happen to his child. I can't imagine someone's heart being so low to do stuff like this. But they did this to her. And they shared it in a school. And she dropped out of school because people there were like saying the most terrible, awful things. I don't want to repeat these words here. They don't deserve to be repeated. But she left the school. And she lived with her aunt for a little bit. She came over and lived with me for a bit. And she tried another school again. And she got there, you know, but it was too new, too fresh. She was too upset, so she left that school. And then she gave it a few months of counseling. We're trying to get her help. And then she went to another school, and she started this other school out, Prince Andrew High, and there's someone there right there. Hey, is this you in this picture? And you know what the text message says? It says all those terrible things they did to you that night. Is this you? Ha ha. So she left that school. That's where she ended up at that hospital with the dog. And then after that, she spent the summer in Ottawa with my brother. You know, she had a great job. She tried to get away from this. We got her in counseling. We got her doing all kinds of great therapy. We're really, really working hard. And then she went to Siddle High in the next September. So now you're talking almost a year later. And she's living with me. And she has a great support network. We've gone to the school. We went to counselors. We got the vice principal involved. Everybody's involved. Everyone's there to protect Reta Parsons. Everybody. She was at that school for 2 weeks. And that's the text message she sent me. I want to come home. Why? People here are saying things about me. Should you talk to your counselor? Probably then, can I come home? I'm trying. It's just bugging me because what they're saying isn't true. Someone in Siddle High, and this is the power of social media, had a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. Hey, Reta, is this you in this picture? And that was it. That was it. I was in the courtroom last Thursday as the boy who took that picture, his lawyer was arguing, no, the picture didn't lead to her death. That was their argument. He said he just made a mistake, he took a picture. It had nothing to do with her death, and the judge just was like, no, I don't believe that. You're saying to me right now, if he didn't do that, Reta Parsons would still be dead? That picture led to her death. It did. And he thought it was funny. It was a simple thing. He's like, I just did a simple thing, a quick mistake. And the judge didn't buy it. No, I don't believe that. What you did right there, it did. Social media, and him taking that picture and putting all the little stories and the little words on there that spread throughout the entire community of Halifax, Nova Scotia, the entire community, not just the schools, adults had this stuff. That led to my daughter's death, and that's why she's dead right now. So she died April 7th of 2013. She went into the bathroom in her house, and she just went to a dark place. Like I said, the last thing she said to me, she gave me a big hug and she gave me a kiss on the cheek, and I was surprised because usually, a father with his daughter, I got to actually, come on, give me a hug and kiss goodbye. But no, she leaned in and she gave that to me. And her last text message was, I'm in the church. And then the next day, I went to bed, and all of a sudden my phone starts buzzing, and it was her mom. And Reta is in the hospital, and I need to come right away. And she hung up, and then there was like another phone call right away because they just checked to see, does she have any brain activity? Because that's an indicator of whether or not you've died. Your heart can beat and your lung can beat. Everything can keep going on, but if there's no brain activity, that's it. And they said, our first indicators are that no. As soon as you hear that, that's it. I knew then, wow, I can't believe it. She seemed to be getting so much better, but it's just this dark place, all this stuff, all this abuse, everything put it in. I did a conference in Toronto a couple weeks ago with Girls Inc., and they had a picture of a girl, of her face. It was a girl and a boy, and all this here. And they said, okay, for every mean thing you can think of to say, rip a piece of that off. And they all had these pieces of paper all over their tables, it's all ripped up, it's a little pile. And they said, okay, now we're going to tape them back together with nice words. But they only gave them like a couple pieces of tape. And I think that's what happened to my daughter. She was so ripped up at the end of the day, me, her mother, all the people who loved her and cared about her, we didn't have enough tape. It just ran out. And for some reason, she seemed to be getting better. And then she died. And I can't believe it. People say, oh, Reta committed suicide. No, she didn't. Reta succumbed to cruelty and meanness and depression. That's what happened to her. She didn't end her life. Her life was ended by other people. And I can't stand thinking about that, because I can't stand thinking who would do something like that. I guess that's why we're here right now, right? We're here right now because, you may not think, oh, I don't want to, I would never do something like that. Well, that's good. But did you do the opposite of it? That's what's important. That's the only message I could have. If one of you takes this home today with one simple little thing, is that you take home that I will never be a bystander. Because I know being a bystander is part of the problem. Bullies rely on other people being quiet. People who torment and terrorize others, they rely on the silence of the majority to get away with it. Because if every time they did something really mean and cruel, the entire school was like, how could you do something like that? That is so awful. You know what? They wouldn't do it. And the message would get out there really fast, and it would spread all over the place really, really quickly. I am never going to do something like that. Ever. It's not acceptable. Anyways, there are a lot of people right now, and this is a new market, and this happened here, and these girls, there's one girl, someone set up some website or a fake Facebook page of her, saying, oh, she's ugly, she's terrible, why did she go kill herself, we hate her at this school, why did she go to another school? And all her friends, and even people she didn't even know, saw all this stuff, and they all came to her defense. And that's what change is about. You know why they came to her defense? Because the kids in the school, it says in this article here, they knew about what happened to Reta Parsons, and they know what happens when you don't do anything. Doing nothing's not acceptable anymore. Because we all have the internet. And you just don't know. There's 1,000 people out there saying mean, awful things about this girl. Well, there's 1,000 people saying great things about her too. And her mother, this girl's mother that was being tormented there, imagine the words she had, wow. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I just wish somebody did something like that for my daughter. Maybe she'd still be here right now. But we didn't know. We didn't know. And it happened again with a girl on Instagram. Are you going to do your announcement? Okay, okay. So it happened again with a girl on Instagram. All her friends came to her defense. The Instagram thing was kill yourself. But all her friends saw it. All these people in her school saw it. All these people just jumped all over it. And they're like, no, we're not just going to sit here and be quiet about this stuff anymore. We're going to say something. So they all went on Instagram and they ended up having this account deleted. But all these people came to her defense. And this girl's mother was on the news crying because she was like, I went to my daughter's Instagram and all I saw was these beautiful comments from all these people telling her how glad they are she goes to her school. You know, when I went on the internet with my daughter, it was the opposite of that. And it's too bad, and I guess that's a positive thing, though, isn't it? It took a real tragedy to bring something positive out, some kind of a positive change. And when positive change, I guess, doesn't happen with people, of course, you get the law. This is Mackenzie Murphy now, and she's changed the laws in Alberta. And what happened with her, it was exactly the same thing, really, that happened with Reta. Not the incident that brought her to this bad place, but when she was in her bedroom and she's like, I don't want to live anymore, her mom walked in. That's the difference between Mackenzie Murphy and Reta Parsons. Her mom just happened to walk in. Mackenzie's still here. Mackenzie is a friend of mine on Facebook now. She's still here. Thank God. That's how fragile life can be sometimes. Simple little thing. So I did a talk in Ottawa at City Hall, you know, and I did a talk, and this is a good thing, and this is, I guess, kind of helps me heal a little bit. It makes me feel better about coming in and talking to everybody. These guys here in this Ottawa, it's called Longsfield Davison Heights Secondary School. And they heard me talk. Their teacher took like 10 of them to the City Hall and listened to me talk, and this was in the spring. And, you know, they went back to the school, and on the bus, the teacher's like, hey, you know, they were really great. They were talking about you, and they were all wondering what they can do. Okay, that's fine, right? You know, and you think, okay, it's going to fade away. That's great. Good message. I hope they do something great with it. But I went back to the school, or in the September, October, I went back there because they contacted me, and the teacher said, you're not going to believe what these guys did. They spent all summer coming up with this great big campaign about not being a bystander. Like a great big campaign about standing up for others. And these are like all the grade 12s in this school. I keep thinking someone should do something, then I realize I am someone. A strong man stands up for himself, a stronger man stands up for others. They came up with all these campaigns, and violence against women posters, sexual assault posters, bullying posters, and they put them all over their school, and they did this on their own initiative. And then they said, hey, Glen, can you come back here and talk to the school? And I walked in that school and I saw this, and I felt, you know, everything that's happened since my daughter died, all the awful things that have happened, when I walked into that school, right there, I thought, okay, that's called change. That's called change. It cost those guys nothing to do that. And that right there, that simple thing right there they did, I'll tell you, that really brought a lot of healing to my heart. Because I know people care. I know they do. I know most people are good people. They just want to raise their families. They just want to be with their friends. They just want to be with their kids. You know, most people are good people. I just want to get those people to say, I'm a good person. That's why I'm not going to be silent. Those guys decided we're not being silent. They knew that some of this stuff happens in their school too. Cyberbullying happens in their school. Things that happen, there's probably Reta Parsons in that school. But these guys here, they're the kind of guys who are like, you know what? We're not going to let this happen. Not in our school, not in our community, not to our friends, not to our families, not to our loved ones, not to our neighbors, not to the weakest kid in the school, even though we don't even know who it is. We're not going to let this happen. That's the right thing to do. That's standing up and being a good person. The next poster that I have, and this one here really resonated, and I know Ms. Hoffman has a Martin Luther King poster on her wall talking about character. This, in the end, will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. My daughter was 17 years old, and this was her favorite saying, and I hate it. I hate the saying, even though it's powerful. I don't like it because she was 17 years old. Why would a 17-year-old have something like this as their favorite saying? Why wasn't it something great and powerful and beautiful and wonderful like it should be? Instead, it was the words of a wounded person. The silence of my daughter's friends really hurt her. It really, truly did. She took it right to her grave. But I don't feel anything about her friends. I don't feel any animosity or dislike of them or anything, you know, because they're her friends. They're your age. And if they didn't know what to do, whose fault is that? Adults' fault. It is. Because I know a lot of you would have liked to have done something. You just didn't know what. That's why we're doing this. That's why there's Bully Awareness Week now. That's why this conversation is so big in Canada right now, and even around the world. You know, we've heard from Japan and Colombia, Russia, China, all over Europe. All these people, me and Retea's mom, all of a sudden they're contacting us as if we're experts on it. And we're not. We're just like, hey, the only thing you can really do is try to talk to people and get young people to stand up for each other. It's a simple solution. You think it was the hardest thing in the world to do, and it's not. This next one here, is my daughter saying, this is from her journal, September 26, 2011. You know, and this is high school. So our high school teacher's like, hey, you're all keeping a journal here. I think this was English class. So she wrote about, you know, she wants to have her driver's license. She looks forward to high school, making new friends, meeting new people, turning 16, planning the rest of her life, and very much looking forward to the rest of high school. And not even 2 months later, this happened to her. And she was never the same again. Not ever. She was never the same again. The damage this did to her, it shattered her dreams. It shattered her as a person. It destroyed her soul. It really did. It wounded her so bad she never ever recovered from it. And that's a shame because she was so loved by me and her mother and everybody, you know, her friends, her family. She was a popular girl. And like I said, I'm looking around here and I could see faces here and I'm like, is that her for a second, you know? It could be. This could have been anybody's child. And it wounds me and it wounded her friends. And this one here is Retea's friend Megan. And Megan for a very, very long time had an awful hard time with this. I got pictures of Retea and Megan when they're like 5 years old together. And one night, Retea's mom, Leah, she went and visited her grave. She had a really terrible night, and she got up in the middle of the night, and she's just like, I got to go visit her. You know, and you say that, you know, you're not going to her apartment or her house or anything. You're going to a grave with this cold rock with her name etched in it. But when her mom went there, Megan was there. And that's so hard. Megan had a dream she told us about where she's in a room in a house and it's an empty room and Retea's standing across the room from her and Megan's standing there and Retea's going, I don't know why you don't help me. Why don't you help me? And that I tell you, she's had a lot of nightmares and it's awful, but it's not her fault. She just didn't know what to do. There's power in numbers. If everyone stood up, then even the people like Megan who don't know what to do, then they'll know what to do. You need some leadership, you need some guidance. You need one good person to say, I'm not putting up with this in my school, and believe me, other people will follow you. I know they will. So where we are right now, like I said, I did a court date. I did a court date on Thursday. That's how fresh this all is. And I watched the judge and that boy who took that photograph of my daughter. You know, he had his father say, my son's a good son. His mom said, my son's a good son. His sisters were there saying, I love my brother. He's a good boy. He is. He's a good guy. You had counselors there, teachers, his football coach. He's a good guy. He's a great guy. You know, he made a simple, single little mistake. Why is he being punished so much for this little mistake? And the psychologist was saying it, and then his lawyer stood up and read off all these great things that he's done. He's got a job. He's working on his GED. He's a good kid. He made a single mistake. And you know what the judge said? He said, all those people are describing your character. That's who you are. They're all saying these great things about your character, but that doesn't define your character. Your character is defined by what you do when no one's watching you. When all those people aren't around to see what you're doing, then your character comes out. And the judge said to him, your character walked into a room, saw a very vulnerable girl being abused, and instead of stopping it, you took a picture of it. That's your character. That's who you are. I don't hate that guy. I have no animosity about him. I don't even really think about him. I don't. I feel, in a way, sorry for him. Because he walked in that room and picked up that and did that because people in his life didn't set a good example for him to follow. And the judge even said, what would you do if you walked in there and that was your sister? And that's what I think people need to live with. They need to understand that. What if this was happening to somebody you loved? What would you want that person who walked in there to do? Help them. Save them. Do something. But man, don't do nothing. I love you. Thank you so much for having me come to your school.